The arena fell silent as two legends stepped into the spotlight that humid Hong Kong evening. In one corner stood Bolo Yeung, the granite-carved destroyer whose mere presence had terrorized Bruce Lee's opponents on the silver screen. In the other, Sammo Hung, the deceptively agile master whose rotund frame concealed lightning-fast reflexes and devastating precision. This wasn't just another fight. This was the collision of two entirely different martial arts philosophies. I witnessed something extraordinary that night, something that redefined everything we thought we knew about combat sports. The crowd of 8,000 packed into the Coliseum knew they were about to witness history, but none of us could have predicted the brutal poetry that would unfold over the next 8 minutes. Bolo entered first, his trademark stoic expression masking the storm brewing beneath. At 58 years old, the man they called Chinese Hercules still carried himself like a walking monument to physical perfection. Every muscle fiber seemed carved from obsidian, his shoulders broad enough to block out stadium lights. His fighting style had always been devastatingly simple, overwhelming power delivered with surgical precision. Years of bodybuilding had given him the physique of a Greek god, but decades in martial arts had honed something far more dangerous, the ability to end fights with single strikes. The Beijing native had spent his career playing villains, but in reality, he was a student of multiple disciplines. Traditional Chinese martial arts formed his foundation, but he'd absorbed elements of karate, boxing, and even wrestling throughout his journey. His weakness, if you could call it that, was his deliberate pace. Bolo fought like a master chess player, calculating each move with methodical precision. Some called it slow. I called it terrifying patience. Then came Sammo, bouncing on his toes despite carrying what appeared to be an extra 50 pounds around his midsection. The Hong Kong legend moved with the fluid grace of water, his body defying every assumption about athletic physique. At 57, he remained one of the most innovative martial artists alive, a man who had revolutionized action choreography while maintaining his edge as a legitimate fighter. Sammo's approach was pure artistry in motion. Where Bolo represented immovable force, Sammo embodied unstoppable momentum. His speed was otherworldly, hands that could strike 15 times while opponents threw 3 punches, feet that found impossible angles of attack. The Peking Opera School had trained him since childhood, instilling not just fighting techniques, but acrobatic abilities that bordered on supernatural. His potential vulnerability lay in his willingness to take risks, to attempt spectacular techniques that sometimes left him momentarily exposed. The opening bell triggered an explosion of contrasts. Sammo immediately began circling, his feet dancing across the canvas, while Bolo planted himself like an oak tree, rotating slowly to track his opponent's movement. The first exchange came 90 seconds in, when Sammo feinted high and swept low, only to meet Bolo's granite shin. The impact echoed through the arena like a gunshot. Round 2 brought the first real fireworks. Sammo launched into a combination that would have overwhelmed lesser opponents. 7 strikes in 2 seconds, each one targeting a different pressure point. But Bolo weathered the storm, absorbing punishment that would have dropped heavyweight boxers, then responded with a single uppercut that lifted Sammo's feet off the ground. The crowd gasped as the rotund master somehow twisted in midair, converting Bolo's power into his own spinning counterattack. By round 4, both men had settled into their deadly rhythm. Bolo's strategy became clear: cut off the ring, force exchanges in tight quarters where his power advantage was absolute. Sammo adapted by using the entire canvas, creating angles that didn't exist, making Bolo chase shadows. Their contrasting breathing patterns told the story. Bolo's deep, controlled inhalations versus Sammo's rapid, almost hummingbird-like rhythm. The turning point arrived in round 6 with shocking suddenness. Sammo had been building towards something spectacular, and when it came, it defied physics. He feinted a flying kick, drawing Bolo's guard high, then somehow reversed direction mid-leap, spinning horizontally to catch the muscular giant with a heel strike to the ribs. The technique was so impossible that even the slow-motion replay couldn't fully explain how he generated such torque. But Bolo's response demonstrated why he'd earned his fearsome reputation. Instead of backing away, he stepped into the impact, trapping Sammo's leg against his body, then drove forward with a palm strike that connected just below the sternum. The sound was sickening, like a sledgehammer hitting leather. Sammo's eyes widened as the air exploded from his lungs, but somehow he managed to twist free and create distance. The final rounds became a masterclass in warrior hearts refusing to surrender. Both men were operating on fumes and pure willpower. Sammo's combinations had lost some of their blinding speed, while Bolo's movements had become more labored, but somehow more dangerous, like a wounded tiger conserving energy for one final pounce. Round 8 brought the decisive moment. Sammo attempted his signature move, a spinning back fist that had ended dozens of fights throughout his career. But this time, Bolo read the technique perfectly. As Sammo committed to the spin, Bolo stepped forward and caught him with a perfectly timed hook kick to the midsection. The impact folded Sammo like origami, sending him to one knee as the arena erupted. What happened next elevated the fight from spectacular to legendary. Instead of pressing his advantage, Bolo stepped back, allowing Sammo to rise. It was an act of pure martial respect that demonstrated why these men were more than fighters. They were artists, philosophers, guardians of ancient traditions. In the end, Bolo Yeung emerged victorious by unanimous decision, but the margin was razor thin. His victory came not from superior technique or overwhelming power alone, but from his ability to solve the puzzle that was Sammo Hung's perpetual motion. By forcing exchanges at close range and weathering the early storm, Bolo had slowly drained his opponent's greatest weapon, that supernatural speed. The fight proved that in martial arts, as in life, there are many paths to mastery. That night, the immovable object had outlasted the unstoppable force, but both men had elevated their art form to heights that will echo through generations of fighters yet to come.